Something happened during Jamal Roberts' recent live appearance that left fans completely stunned. What started like an ordinary live session suddenly became emotional when Jamal appeared to struggle with his feelings and then, according to the moment being discussed online, he made a deeply personal admission involving Jennifer Hudson. The words that caught everyone's attention were simple: "I still love Jennifer Hudson." And almost immediately, the reaction exploded. Fans began asking the same question. What really happened between Jamal Roberts and Jennifer Hudson, and why would he open up about those feelings now? Because this wasn't just another celebrity moment. There was something noticeably different about Jamal's demeanor. He didn't appear to be joking. He didn't seem to be playing to the audience. Instead, viewers saw an emotional side of him that many people weren't expecting. And that is exactly why this moment has people talking. But before we get into the reaction, we need to understand why Jennifer Hudson's name in this conversation is so significant. Jennifer Hudson is one of the biggest entertainment personalities in the world. She has built a career across music, television, film, and Broadway, becoming known not only for her powerful voice but also for her ability to connect with audiences on an emotional level. So when her name suddenly entered an emotional conversation involving Jamal Roberts, fans naturally wanted to know what was going on. Was Jamal simply expressing admiration? Was he talking about feelings from the past? Or was there something deeper behind his emotional reaction? That uncertainty is what made the live moment so compelling. And social media did what social media always does. People started analyzing everything: his facial expressions, his pauses, his tone of voice, the moments when he appeared to gather himself before continuing. Some viewers believed he was genuinely heartbroken. Others wondered whether he was simply overwhelmed by memories and emotions. And then there were fans who immediately started connecting the dots. But there's an important distinction here. Online reactions and speculation are not the same thing as confirmed facts. Unless Jamal himself clearly explains the context behind his comments, viewers should be careful about turning a few emotional moments into a complete story. Still, one thing is undeniable. The moment got people's attention. And it happened because Jamal Roberts appeared to let his guard down. For someone in the public eye, that can be incredibly difficult. Celebrities and entertainers are constantly expected to look confident, composed, and in control. But live video is different. There are no carefully edited cuts. There's no opportunity to remove an awkward pause. There's no chance to rewrite an emotional sentence after it has already been said. And when someone becomes emotional during a live broadcast, viewers often feel like they are witnessing something much more personal. That appears to be exactly how many fans interpreted this situation. Then came the statement that changed the entire conversation. "I still love Jennifer Hudson." Whether viewers interpreted that literally, emotionally, romantically, or simply as an expression of deep admiration, the sentence immediately became the center of attention. Fans were shocked. Some were confused. Some were sympathetic. And others simply wanted answers. Why would Jamal say something like that publicly? And, perhaps even more importantly, what was happening emotionally in that moment? That's where the story becomes much more complicated. Because sometimes people say things during emotional moments that have layers of meaning. "I love you" doesn't always mean the same thing. It can mean romantic love. It can mean admiration. It can mean gratitude. It can mean affection that has remained after a relationship or connection has changed. Without the full context, it is impossible to know exactly what Jamal meant. And that is why the reaction has become so intense. Fans are filling in the blanks. Some are creating theories. Others are defending Jamal. And some are simply watching the situation unfold. But there is another reason this moment has resonated so strongly. People understand what it feels like to have unresolved emotions. You can move forward with your life and still carry memories from the past. You can become successful and still have moments when certain people or experiences bring emotions back to the surface. And when that happens publicly, millions of people can suddenly become part of something that was probably deeply personal. That may be why viewers reacted so strongly to Jamal's apparent breakdown. They weren't just watching a celebrity become emotional. They were watching someone appear vulnerable. And vulnerability is something audiences recognize immediately. But the biggest question remains. Was Jamal revealing something that had been hidden for a long time, or was this simply an emotional moment taken out of context? That question is still hanging over the entire conversation. And until Jamal gives a clearer explanation, fans are left with fragments. A live appearance, an emotional reaction, a statement about Jennifer Hudson, and thousands of people trying to understand what it all means. But there's something else fans noticed. The timing. Why did this happen now? Why did these emotions surface during this particular live session? And was there something that triggered the conversation in the first place? Those are the questions that could completely change how people interpret the moment. Because context matters. A single sentence can sound completely different depending on what was said immediately before it. And that's exactly why viewers should wait for the full story instead of immediately accepting every viral interpretation. Still, one thing is clear. Jamal's emotional moment has created a conversation that is much bigger than the original live stream. And now, fans want to hear directly from him. They want to know what he meant. They want to know why Jennifer Hudson was brought up. And most importantly, they want to know whether there is a deeper story behind those emotional words. Because if Jamal really intended the statement the way many viewers interpreted it, then this could be far more personal than anyone initially realized. And that brings us to the biggest question of all. What happens if Jamal decides to explain everything? Because if he goes back on live and provides the missing context, the entire story could change. After the emotional moment began circulating, fans didn't simply move on. They started looking for answers. And that's when the conversation became much bigger. People began discussing Jamal Roberts' words from every possible angle. Some fans felt sympathy for him. They argued that whatever he was experiencing, he deserved privacy and compassion. Others were more skeptical. They wondered whether viewers were reading too much into a short, emotional clip. And honestly, that is an important question. Because the internet has a habit of turning emotional moments into complete narratives before all the facts are available. A person can pause. A person can cry. A person can mention someone they deeply care about. And suddenly, the internet creates an entire backstory. That doesn't necessarily mean the backstory is true. So while Jamal's words certainly attracted attention, the responsible approach is to separate what was actually said from what fans believe it means. But there's no denying that his apparent emotional state made the moment powerful. And that is what fans keep coming back to. They weren't expecting to see Jamal looking so vulnerable. They were expecting entertainment. Instead, they got emotion. And sometimes those are the moments audiences remember the longest. Jennifer Hudson's name also added another layer to the discussion. She has an enormous public profile, meaning that anything connected to her can quickly attract attention. But it is important not to assume a romantic relationship, private history, or hidden connection simply because her name was mentioned. That would be speculation. What we can say is that fans were surprised by the apparent emotional significance of the name. And that surprise is what pushed the moment across social media. Suddenly, people who had never watched the original live were seeing clips and reactions. And with every repost, the story became more dramatic. That is how viral celebrity moments work. A long conversation becomes a short clip. The short clip becomes a headline. The headline becomes a reaction video. And eventually, people who never saw the original context begin discussing the story as if they were there. That's why context matters more than ever. If Jamal wants to clarify his comments, his own explanation will ultimately be more meaningful than fan theories. And fans appear to be waiting for exactly that. They want to hear him explain what he was feeling. Was he talking about love in a romantic sense? Was he expressing admiration? Was he remembering a particular chapter of his life? Or was there another reason Jennifer Hudson's name became part of that emotional moment? Right now, those questions remain open. And perhaps that uncertainty is exactly why the story continues to attract attention. because people naturally want closure. When someone says something emotional and doesn't immediately explain it, viewers create their own explanations. And the longer the explanation remains unclear, the more theories begin to grow. But there is also a human side to this story that shouldn't be ignored. Whatever Jamal was experiencing, emotional vulnerability is difficult, especially when thousands or potentially millions of people are watching. Imagine trying to process personal feelings while knowing that every word could be clipped, reposted, analyzed, and debated. That pressure is enormous. And it is easy for audiences to forget that celebrities are still human beings. They experience heartbreak. They experience regret. They remember people. They miss people. They struggle with emotions. The difference is that their emotional moments can become public entertainment within minutes. That may be why some fans chose compassion rather than criticism. They didn't necessarily care about the celebrity rumors. They cared about the person they saw becoming emotional. And that reaction tells us something important about Jamal's connection with his audience. People weren't just interested in the statement. They were interested in the emotion behind it. That's a completely different thing. Still, the internet is going to continue asking questions. And one question is probably going to dominate the conversation. Does Jamal still have feelings for Jennifer Hudson? At this point, nobody outside Jamal himself can answer that with certainty. Anything beyond his own confirmed words would be speculation. And that distinction matters. But if Jamal decides to address the situation again, his next statement could receive enormous attention. Because now, people are listening. They want clarity. They want context. And they want to understand what caused such an emotional moment in the first place. Perhaps Jamal will explain that the phrase was misunderstood. Perhaps he will provide more personal context. Or perhaps he will simply leave the moment behind. Any of those outcomes is possible. And until he says more, the most accurate conclusion is simply this. Jamal Roberts appeared emotional during a live moment. Jennifer Hudson became part of the conversation, and fans were surprised enough to turn the moment into a major online discussion. The rest remains unanswered. But maybe that's why this story has connected with so many people. Because underneath the celebrity names and social media reactions is something incredibly ordinary. Feelings don't always disappear just because life moves forward. Sometimes memories return unexpectedly. Sometimes a person can still matter to you long after circumstances have changed. And sometimes, in a vulnerable moment, those feelings come out before you have time to decide whether the world should hear them. That may be what viewers witnessed. Or there may be more to the story. Only Jamal can truly tell us. So now the question goes to you. Do you think Jamal's words were misunderstood, or do you believe there is a deeper story behind his emotional moment? And if Jamal decides to explain what he meant, do you think his next statement will change the way fans see this entire situation? Let us know what you think in the comments. Because right now, one emotional live moment has opened a conversation that nobody seemed to expect. And until Jamal himself gives the full story, the biggest question is still unanswered.